This is the Bluff Town Council regular meeting. Today is September 20th, 2022. It is 6:00 p.m. Roll call.
Linda Sosa.
Joanne Hook.
Grant Murray. Jim, you're muted.
I'm sorry, Jim Sayers.
Ann Leppiman.
Erin Nelson serving as town manager.
Then the first thing on the agenda is approval of the Bluff Town Council regular meeting minutes from September 13th, 2022. Has everybody read them? Are there any changes, modifications, points of discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
One of those numbers down there when they're talking about the resolution that we voted for from the league, and it says that it something like it helps us get more power instead of the state or something. I think this letter was essentially to oppose state control. Maybe I'm wrong, but anybody remember what I'm talking about?
It was to support the resolution that the league had done, the draft.
Right, and I think the letter was to sort of oppose state control over local affairs, more or less.
So the letter did not go out because the Utah League of Cities and Towns approved the resolution between the time that I sent it out and the time that we approved supporting the resolution. So the resolution by the league was already approved.
Oh.
And so we can weigh in when the legislative session comes in and this becomes an issue. But I figured there was no point in writing a letter to say we approve something they've already done when we'll have to weigh in again later in the fall when the session goes in. If you want me to write the letter, I can.
No big deal.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then the second set of minutes are the approval of the Bluff Town Council Strategic Planning with Erin Nelson. Those minutes from September 14th, 2022. Any modification, discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Thank you, guys.
Any comments? All right, then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then we'll move to public comment. There will be a 3-minute time limit for each person wishing to comment. If you exceed the 3-minute limit without permission, the meeting controller will mute you. So is there anyone who wishes to make a public comment? Chief Lott.
Yeah, if no one else is ready to speak, I just wanted to bring up that our neighboring agencies have dropped their fire restrictions, and especially with the recent weather, I think we could move to the same. And I've been getting requests for burn permits, so I just wanted to run all that by all of you so that we could start whatever process needs to happen.
Thank you. I think one of the things that we had done is we moved from stage 2 to stage 1 and posted it on the website, but we haven't dropped all restrictions. So our next meeting isn't until October 4th, and this might be something that, along with one other thing, just call a 5-minute meeting in between so that you can get moving on those permits. So I'll talk with the council members individually about trying to set up 5 minutes to chat before October 4th. Does that work for you, Chief?
That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you all.
Good comment. Anyone else with a public comment? Well, it's 6:05. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the agenda, and if somebody pops in the next minute or two, I'll put them on after the first agenda item, which is a presentation on the speed analysis that was done by Thomas Hayden. And I think we have Thomas on, and I'm going to just remind everybody that this is an unofficial, informal study, but it was done with a radar gun in selected spots to be able to get some ballpark of what we're looking at when we go back to the table to talk to UDOT. And for those entities that have not sent in a public support letter to the town and are concerned, or those residents who are concerned, please forward them to me, because in the next couple of weeks, we'll be having another conversation with UDOT on speed. So Thomas, if you're on, go ahead.
Yeah, is my microphone working?
It is working, yes.
All right, so let's see. Is it okay if I present, I guess, or share my screen?
You may go right ahead.
All right. So this is the sort of spreadsheet that I've shared with Anne and the data that I collected. There's not too much. I think there's like I radared, I think, close to 200 cars. All the raw data is over here on the left, as you can see when I scroll down. It was like 168, yeah. And I just did some really basic analysis on it. It's nothing too much. There's a little legend here, so the I differentiated between cars, or like just general passenger vehicles, pickups, RVs. There was like one bus, and that was going pretty slow, and then semis. And I broke them. I grabbed the averages from cars, pickups, and semis, because I thought there was enough from each of those to I guess deserve having an average. There wasn't really enough semis, or I mean buses or RVs. And then the total average is over there. And then I figured it was a bit more helpful to break it up into speed brackets so that you could see specifically how many vehicles were going the speed limit, or above or below. So actually most or a good amount of the vehicles in this little graph that I have are going, I would say, probably a proper speed in accordance with the speed limit. But there's a fair amount that are going above, and that's, I guess, the important part. I have a little paragraph up here. So 23% of the vehicles that went through Bluff, where I grabbed the speed data from, did it at about speeds of at least 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And I talked about, this is a bit of an issue. The highway runs directly through the town. It's not uncommon to see people walking down the side of the highway. It's the most direct way to walk to most destinations in town, or at least if you're just walking through sort of the center of town. So that's about all I did. It's nothing too complicated, but I think it paints a fairly clear picture of, I guess, how fast cars go through the town and how many are doing it.
Thanks. It is really helpful to see it captured in a way that breaks it down by the speed brackets. Does anyone on the council have a question for Thomas, or any comments? For Grant?
Thomas, this is great. Thank you. Really captures exactly what's going on in town, and it's kind of the evidence we need. So Mayor and Thomas, thank y'all for this.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone else have a question or anything before I release Thomas, so he can go back?
Yeah.
Say thank you too. It's great to have these, specific ones, and by somebody besides a deputy that people might be slowing down for or something. And there are also some speed study bumps out in front of the lodge right now. They put them in yesterday.
Do they? What's the total number of vehicles counted, Thomas?
168. So not a super small sample size, but not like a terribly big one either.
68. So approximately a little less than a third of them are going over the speed limit. Is that the upshot? One of the upshots here?
Yes, a little less than a third, and then about a fifth of them I wrote I would like significantly over the speed limit.
Yeah, that's quite a few going over the speed limit, though, a third.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
yeah. Hmm.
Well, if no one else has any questions, if Thomas wants to jump off and have a evening to himself, we can let him do that. Thomas, thank you so much.
All right, thank you guys.
All right. I understand we may be seeing Thomas's brother next year instead of Thomas. Thomas really enjoyed working here. So number 2, update on the plan for emergency medical services training by Kane County, scholarships and future ideas. So the update is that the total sum, and Linda, correct me, I think the total sum that we brought in from the fundraiser, or I should say more correctly, the fort brought in, was $4,529. And I'm ballparking that based on what I know the last check was, and there might have been something that came in, but it's $4,500 plus. So that gives us a fair amount of money to work with. And with the fire department saying use it for EMS, that money then will be set aside to be able to provide the scholarships we talked about. Now, you should have gotten today an email from Don DeLago through Lois Young that spelled out the need for EMTs and talked about advertising the hybrid EMT course. The class is 12 weeks. It starts Wednesday, September 28th at 6 p.m. by Zoom, and it ends on December 21st. Kathy Carson and Don DeLago are working on parts of it from here. I think at this point we have 3 committed people to doing this. And as I said, it's hybrid, so they'll be doing most of it at the fire, or a lot of it at the fire station here in Bluff. And then rather than traveling to Blanding, there will be the hands-on taught here. Now, I've been talking with Dawn and Kathy about this. Obviously, a 12-week commitment for our EMTs, Dawn and Kathy, is a big commitment. And I've asked them to break down what their fee would be to be able to do the hands-on here in Bluff once a week or whenever it's required versus folks traveling to Blanding at night when it's getting dark and coming back late at night and then paying and covering mileage and gas for folks. It just seems more efficient to be teaching that here. So I'm not prepared to ask for a vote on a specific amount for reimbursement to our EMTs, but I will be asking for that once they get the cost broken down. And if you disagree and think that people should be, the 3 new recruits should be traveling to Blanding, this would be a good time to let us, let me know so I can communicate that to Kathy and Dawn, because right now they're structuring it with it, that hands-on being here.
I like the idea of doing it in town, Mayor. So you have my vote on that.
Would those classes just be open to residents of Bluff?
Well, the surrounding community, so that if it's someone on the Navajo Nation here in Utah that's interested, and I believe that is one of the candidates, 2 in town.
Oh, that's great. That's great. We ought to do it here. Yeah.
And then the breakdown of the course is state application fee, $110.25, an NREMT test fee, $98, course materials, $371, fingerprinting, $20. So that's roughly $599. Some of them will require the CPR course, which is $42.50, and the blood pressure cuff and stethoscope, which is $20. That's $62.50. So it's roughly $662 per person to take this. So that got to the point of how do we do the reimbursement? And rather than having Linda do, a check a week for each of the three of them to a certain vendor or provider, what I have talked with Don DeLego about doing is I'll use the state application fee as an example. That's $110.25. So I would go to the fire station the first meeting, which is the 28th of September, and I would have our credit card with me, and I would pay for the three trainees on our credit card. I do the same for the test fee, the learning, the fingerprints, the CPR, and the stethoscope. So rather than Linda having 3 times 6 checks to have to write out, it would just all be on our credit card, and we'd be able to document each one of these pieces with the receipt. So that's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to open this up for discussion and tell me what your thoughts are on all of that.
Are 100% of the fees reimbursed?
What do you mean? Like, are they being
Like for an individual who's going to take these courses, 100% reimbursed?
100%? Yes.
Okay.
And then the hope would be that San Juan County would be doing something similar this winter. And so we have plenty of funds if we get people who see that this is working and want to do it. Other thoughts, questions?
I like it. That sounds good.
So this would be on the town's accounts, and that would fit into Polaris, okay?
Oh, yeah.
The good way of tracking it? Okay. It's fine.
It would track it, and Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, it would track it similar to the CARES money, the ARPA money, the CCC funds, that kind of thing. There'd be a tracking. Erin, did you have something?
I was just going to mention that we do already have a separate line item for the funds that went in for the fundraiser. So they're already quote unquote earmarked. So Jim, it would go against that ledger account.
And what happens if all the funds aren't used up? They hold over? They carry over?
They'd
Okay.
hold over. Right. And I think that if there were funds that weren't used up in this year, and if the fort or somebody decided to do another fundraiser, certainly going back to the volunteer fire department, seeing what they need would be a way to go. I don't think we're going to have a problem with using the funds in a way that benefits our first responders. That's at least my sense.
Do we need a
Sounds good.
And I just have one question on what is there any like later cancellation if somebody starts in and does a class or two and then can no longer participate, or it's sign up and go for it?
Right. Sign up and go for it. And that was a discussion that cost Dawn, I'm sorry to lay this on you, caused Dawn a great deal of consternation, because there's really no way to make it. The only way to make it accountable for a late cancellation fee, since there's none built in to the system, would be to tell that individual that they needed to pay the town, well, not the town, the EMS program back through us. And I think we're recognizing that part of the hardship is the inability for someone to volunteer and pay for this, and things are going to happen. And that's kind of how I how I thought about it in my brain. It happens, stuff happens, life gets in the way, and maybe somebody has a sick child, or they lose their regular employment and have to do something else. I mean, anything could happen. And so what Kathy and Dawn have talked to folks about is doing, at least a year, maybe 2 for the commitment. And we have 3 really solid people, and we're just, they have good intentions by signing up and good intentions to finish. Like,
They get a certification out of this, right?
yes.
Well, that's pretty attractive.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, more of the actual course, like being able to finish the course.
Not that I'm aware of, Lou. It's really just pay the fees and go for it. So
Okay, that's fine. I just was wondering how this one was set up.
Motion, Mayor?
probably, yeah, we do on the paying with our credit card and setting it up that way. We do need a motion for that.
Good. Well, I make a motion that we supply the scholarships for the EMTs under guidance from Dawn and Kathy and the mayor, and pay for the courses with credit cards as they arrive in Bluff.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The movie, anyone opposed? Sorry. It's unanimous. Then moving to number 3, the discussion and vote on pathways proposal for strategic planning. We've had our strategic planning in-house to work with Aaron Nelson on looking at some of our priorities and looking at some of the things that we want to be doing with pathways. Once we tell pathways that we want to accept the proposal, they'd send a contract. It's $32,000. The work would be done over, I was thinking 3 months, but I think it's 6 months, isn't it? No, I can't remember. But the work would start, and I could pull it out. But I think we've all looked at the contract and looked at what they offer. So questions, any concerns, any thoughts?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Anything else? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then Jim and I will notify Pathways that we're accepting the proposal. And then we'll move forward. Anything else on that? All right, then number 4, discussion and vote on process and forms for application to vacate an alley or right-of-way. This was one of the projects that our attorney has not gotten to, and he did not get to it this week. I'm hopeful that by our next meeting, which is October 4th, we'll have it on the agenda and have it ready to go. Once I get feedback from Chris, I'll send it out to everyone, but I haven't had any feedback from him on what we sent to him. So that's being moved to October 4th unless somebody has something they want to talk about. Update and discussion on the petition and public hearing to disconnect from the town of Bluff. If you remember, we talked about holding the public hearing October 18th. And then the amount of things that we need to do and the notices, it became really difficult to meet October 18th. So I talked with Chris McEnany and then reached out to Bruce Baird about changing the date. He is talking with his client, and I'm trying to think exactly how this went. We looked at November, we looked at October, then we looked at November. He is going to Africa for 3 weeks. Before that, he's going to Antarctica. So it looks like the earliest we'll do a public hearing is going to be around the end of November or the first few days of December. He's talking to his client and he'll get back with me, which is good for us. It gives us more time to do what we need to do. And given that this is pretty jammed up on projects for us and other people, I'm happy to have it pushed out. So if any one of the 5 of you, including Aaron here, if you have, I'll try to send out exactly what the dates were that we were aiming for, but I think it was November 29th to November 29th to December 3rd was the time frame we were looking in. So if you're not going to be available, would you just let me know by email so that I can kind of fine tune it? Like I said, he'll be in Africa most of December, and I'd really like this not to hold over into January. I think it would just be hard.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'm going to go out, and I thought about doing it today, but I ran out of time, and kind of try to mark that south end of that section somehow with a little red flag or something, so we can kind of look at it over the next month or so. So I'll let you know, but I think I can go kind of locate those corners, the south end of those corners. So I'll be in touch on that.
And Chris sent a long list to Aaron and myself of things he'd like to see us put together. He's requested records from the county that he feels are relevant in terms of tracing the history of that piece of land and doing some other things. So hopefully in the next few days, I'll be talking with him and I can nail that down, and I'll just wait for Mr. Baird to get back with me on the dates that work for his client and then check with all of us.
And is there a problem with pushing it into January, getting past the end of the year and getting past the holidays?
Nope, there's no problem. So if he,
My encouragement would be to put it in January.
well, let's see what he comes back with. He's obviously traveling a lot, which is nice. So let's see what he comes back with, and then we can talk about that before we nail anything down. Then anything else on number 5? Okay, if there's not, then I had hoped to be able to have a discussion and vote on an amendment to our zoning ordinance, which is 2022-3-5, 6.01.090, which was that whole discussion regarding single-family dwellings versus single-family dwellings in C1, that planning and zoning had recommended we change it to the language to residential dwelling. And we did not accept that recommendation. And it appears that the general consensus is that by not accepting that, we've limited C1 to single-family dwelling only, and that no matter how you read it, some folks are feeling like we really needed the residential dwelling. So there are a couple of fine-tuning things that have come up that may need to be talked about in a public hearing. But my question to Chris McEnany was, if we've held a public hearing, well, let me back up. Marcia Hadenfeld's question was that we probably need to hold a public hearing to make that change from single-family dwelling to residential dwelling. And I agreed with her when we were meeting because it made sense. But then as I thought about it, if planning and zoning held a public hearing to talk about that and they made a recommended change, and we had our meeting and we voted not to make that change, then if we're just making that change, my question to Chris that's sitting out there is, can we just put that on the agenda, discuss it, and vote to either make that change to residential dwelling or not? Because we've held a public hearing, 2, we've had a public meeting, we've had a vote. We could rescind our vote and take the vote, do the vote again and see where we all are. So that's the explanation as to why it's on here. I was hoping to be able to discuss it tonight and vote on it, but we're not able to. Aaron?
In your discussion with Chris, I'd also be interested to know, I believe there's something about when you are making things less restrictive, it might change the necessity for a public hearing. When you're making it more restrictive, that's typically definitely, when a public hearing needs to be held. But that might be something just to, ask as well, if that has any implications on the question at hand.
It's a good question. So the second sentence in my email, third sentence, the wording would make the use more inclusive rather than more restrictive. Are we able to bypass? Because we've done that on one other thing that he offered a legal opinion. It was more inclusive than restrictive. We were changing a word. And so that is a part of my email to him, but thanks, Aaron. That's a good point. Anyway, the hope would be that by October, boy, I'm having trouble with months. Well, that's right, October 4th. By October 4th, we could have it on the meeting to have a discussion and vote. As soon as I get something back from Chris, I'll let you know by email. I'll forward you his email. So, any questions on that, or what the thinking is that Marcia Hadenfeld and I had? And again, it was an informal conversation talking about a wide range of topics on planning.
So currently, it's C2 is restricted to single family dwellings, correct?
C1, yes.
C1. Okay.
And C2 and C3, if I remember reading it correctly.
Well, right, it would be because it's in C1, C2 captures C1, C3 captures C3. That's
Right, but it doesn't, you don't get any more. And it's a variation from the International Zoning Code. The International Zoning Code allows no residents in the commercial zones.
Okay, thank you.
And I think part of the thinking is that when you're we have as little buildable space as we have, or usable space for residents, that one size doesn't fit all. And my thinking months ago was that was a change I didn't feel like we should do, and other people agreed. But now if we can look at it again, I think we should have that discussion. And maybe we have to do a public hearing, so stay tuned. That's really the big thing. Well, anything else on that? Okay, so number 7, I almost didn't put this on. I didn't want to say we have another grant to manage, but we do. But this one will be pretty easy in the scope of things. As you remember, Joe Hubbard applied for a second round of AmeriCorps team to come in and work at St. Christopher's Mission, primarily to build the tiny house village. And he did a really good job on the application. It was very compelling. The town is the sponsor, and then USU Extension with Reagan White Salucci would be included in it. Well, we were notified that the grant was awarded. So we'll be getting no more than 10 team members. We had an introductory call that you have to have with AmeriCorps yesterday for 2.5 hours. Walked through the same process that we had before. That the team will come in from Sacramento. They'll leave there October 31st, get here November 1st. November 2nd will be their first day of work. There'll be an orientation. Then we will have, I think it's 8 weeks of work, 40 to 45 hours per week for them. Then they'll have their separate volunteer work that they'll be doing. They'll focus on the tiny houses, and the mission has everything lined up. They've done land use clearance. They have the permit. The septic's being put in right now. The tiny houses will be arriving in the kits. The materials have been, there's sufficient funds for the materials from the Episcopal Church, and then I'm not sure if they're all ordered or not, but he's definitely been working with San Juan Building Supply. Then the town will get a couple of days as well. Like before, we'll do probably something like the giant cane and try to take some of that down. If something else pops up, we'll look at the grant and see what we're kind of written in for. But the focus is really to get those tiny houses up and running, because it would provide some transient, unsheltered housing, as well as perhaps some sheltering for workers. So we really want to focus on that. And then USU's would be the garden sustainability, as well as a couple of other projects that they have. The mission also would like to get the old clinic up and running for a building. So there's a lot of work that they'll be doing. Same rules apply as last year. They'll be living at the mission. They'll be communally living. They will have a 15-passenger van. They will be trained in using whatever power tools and whatever skills they need to have. They'll be getting trained when they're here, or have been trained in Sacramento before they come. They're still assembling the team, so we don't know where our team members are from, and we don't know anything else about them. There will be lunch and learns. Because the mission is taking on the majority of the administrative tasks, I have offered to take on the task of arranging the lunch and learns and the topics and the speakers. And so once we get closer to the middle of October, I'll be asking all of you who you'd like to see, be a speaker out there, what kind of lunch and learns we want to put on. As a group, the three organizations are responsible for the orientation, and we're responsible for the celebratory dinner if we want to do that, which, of course, I think that would, it was really a big hit last year. I think it would be great to do again. They have the same or similar COVID restrictions. They'll follow what the town's lead is and what the mission's lead is. So if we end up having to be stricter, we can do that. They have to follow whatever our guidelines are. We've got arrangements for separating the workers from each other if there is a COVID outbreak. They are all vaccinated and boosted. That is now a requirement of AmeriCorps. I think that pretty much covers the 2.5 hours we talked. So this is your opportunity to say you want us to back out, or to say that this is okay. By comparison, this is an easy grant to run, and I don't mind working. I've asked Erin to help me on some resources. I'll come back to all of you with the ideas on the lunch and learn projects and getting your involvement. So, thoughts?
We had an outstanding experience last time with AmeriCorps, and I think we should do it again. And I applaud you for taking on the work. Do you need a motion, Mayor?
I think I'd like to have one, yes.
I'll make a motion that we enter into this AmeriCorps grant cycle with these folks again this year.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. The one interesting thing, well, there were a lot of interesting things. Amanda Cochran, who is our go-to person in Sacramento, is moving to Sitka, Alaska to take on a job with the U.S. Forestry. But she made the mistake of inviting all of us to visit her. So I think, maybe a group trip to Alaska would be great. But Amanda is the person who supported the grant last year and pushed us through, and supported it this year and pushed us through. She's really amazing. We haven't met the new pusher, which is Quinn. We'll meet him soon. But one of the things that she reminded us, and I think we all know it, we're getting 10 different people, and sometimes folks in the community and on the council say, oh, last year was better, we did more with them, they got more done. And she reminded all of us, and I don't think any of us would do this, but remember, they're all 10 different people this time. Personalities will be different, their abilities will be different. And I know we welcomed them before. I know we'll do the same thing again. So that orientation, I'll let you know more details so that if you can come out to it, it'll be outside. As much as we can do outside is going to be outside. So, okay. Then number 8, summary of the road committee meeting held on September 14th. We're going to defer that to get additional information on a couple of issues. So it was Luann and Thomas Hook, Michael Havocan, and I met and went over some stuff, but we still need a little more information. So we'll just defer it, if that's okay with everyone, to October 4. So last week when we had the blip at the community center where the internet went down, it occurred to me that we need to talk about what do we do if that happens, where we get interrupted. Since I have the recorder that goes into the Utah Public Notice website, and I don't think I had probably a Rosemary Woods 4-minute, 5-minute gap where it was just me yelling at Aaron to find out what's going on. So I think we have to have a policy that if we have a blip where the person with the recorder is offline, that person with the recorder will either get online as fast as possible or communicate they can't get back online, but the talking in terms of substance has to stop. We can upload YouTube onto it, but it's more burdensome to do than it is to just stop for 5 minutes. And I promise that if I get blipped out again, I will immediately text somebody and say I'm coming back or I can't, so that Jim or someone else can take over. Does that make sense to everyone?
Well, it does, but if you really can't get back on and you've got the recorder, I think the meeting has to be canceled, does it not?
Where's the second recorder, Mr. Sayers?
But that second recorder is just for the executive sessions, Mayor.
We have a third recorder I can get you, Mr. Sayers. we actually have 3 or 4 of these. But, you know,
But I get to make the decision to cancel or not if you're not around. Isn't that correct?
It is. And in that case, I'll just log off right now. And that's why I'm talking about it. It just occurred to me it's something we need to figure out how we're going to do it, because even though I had an offer from the fire chief to run across the street, I couldn't be assured they had internet. And so, I mean, what would you prefer to do? Would you prefer, if we get blipped out, that we just cancel at that point, stop the meeting?
I think the mayor could make some decisions as you go along. If you're talking about certain essential things, you could stop the meeting, but we could get along without you for a few issues, Mayor.
As long as somebody's recording, I don't mind that at all.
No.
In fact, I feel a recorder malfunction every first, second, and third Tuesday of the month coming up.
So what was your experience with YouTube uploading? Is that not an option?
It is an option, but it's not as easy, because you've got to, okay, I'm technology challenged, as we all know, and you can only upload certain types of recordings. And so it's harder to do that. And I just don't want to try to have to figure that out, which is why we have a backup recorder.
One thing that, remember, we had to do it a couple times on my phone, and that wasn't very uploadable. But what I did was just turned it on and recorded it on your recorder and uploaded that whole continuous segment. So we could do that from YouTube and put it on your recording.
So what do people want to do? I personally have just said what I think, so everybody else weigh in what you want to do, and I'll go with the consensus.
If the recorder's not working, stop the meeting. You know?
Okay,
That's fine.
are you talking about this recorder or this recorder? Meaning me or the recorder?
The mechanical recorder.
'Cause
That-
the recorder was working. That's the problem. The recorder was working, but I was offline, so I didn't pick up anything that was said.
What's your recommendation again? Fill me in again. What are you saying?
Her recommendation is I turn on the backup recorder and just keep going if she decides to just go home.
Mhm.
That sounds
Yeah,
like-
and then if you don't have that and it's something we can continue on,
Yeah.
then the
Yeah,
YouTube could back that part up. But I don't think I think we just need to be aware of it. Last
I
time
think-
it took us a second to realize that Aaron was gone too.
I do think there needs to be a unified policy, and I'll go with whatever it is, but I need to know what to do. I do not want to make the decision on my own, which is why there's 5 of us.
Well, I think as long as it's being recorded on our recorder, the mayor or the vice or the mayor pro tem should continue the meeting unless either of those decides to stop the meeting. That gives us flexibility both ways. And that's my motion, if that's what you want.
So the other scenario could be that some other people are kicked out for various reasons. And so then what, as long as there's a quorum, it continues? Or, that could be problematic if it's something that it's important to be voting on.
So unlike certain other bodies, I am of the firm belief that when we don't have a quorum, we stop, period.
Right.
So if 3 of us are booted out, in the safe thing is don't keep going. And
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I agree.
My decision would be that I would record and we'd keep going, but I don't think we should vote on anything if somebody's technologically unable to join, but otherwise would want to join. I think there wouldn't be any voting on anything, but we could continue with whatever parts of the meeting that did not require a vote, and we could keep those recorded.
I would second that if that's a motion.
Yeah.
So may I ask a point of clarification? So if 3 of us were booted out, would the other 2 keep going?
No, you're right. There's no quorum. There's no quorum. If there's no quorum, any meeting is going to end. If we come together and 3 of us are absent, then we don't meet. So 2 of us come together, it's not a meeting.
So Jim, was that your motion then? And
Yeah.
you did? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Given that we've gone 4 years and only had it happen once, at least that I recall, it's pretty good. Number 10, discussion of a request for meeting on September 27th with the town of Bluff by Mike Stagg of Utah Local Governments Trust. He sent an email to us saying he's going to be doing a stop through in San Juan County and visiting each of his insureds to talk to them about safety policy, designating a safety officer, a go-to contact point. And he has to meet with whoever that person would be and someone from the council. So he's coming as close to 3:30 on September 27th as he can. And he'll meet at the office. And I don't know if you want to decide who the go-to person is, because I don't really know what the duties would be, or do you want 2 of us to meet with him, get the duties, do the walk through? He wants to look at the playground. He wants to look at the CCC. You know, he just wants to get a. He'll be at the community center. He just wants to get a feel for what we've got. And we're not being singled out because of the playground or any issue. He's doing this with all the insureds. So
What day, Mayor?
the 27th.
I'm out of town that week, so I'm not available.
So is there someone who would like to join us, or do you want me to just do it?
I'll probably be in town. I never know, but I will probably be able to do that with you. Do we know what time?
3:30 roughly. He's hoping to get here by 3:30 because I think he's, you know, making a sweep through the county.
Yeah, if you'll let me know, I can probably join you too. Unless you don't want 3.
We can't have 3.
Can't have 3. So go ahead. Just let me know if Sayers can't join. I will come with you.
So let me just toss this out as a thought. You know, since the playground at the CCC is really kind of a sensitive point for all of us and the community. So rather than for the playground committee to feel cut out, my thought would be that somebody from the playground committee should go to the playground so they can hear it and ask any questions, so that it's just not us reporting back as to what the insurer says. And I think that they have that committee has a good handle on what they heard from Tom Correo. And it would just be my request that we include a playground committee member.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fine.
I think that's a great idea. Couple of them. Have a couple of them come so that
They could all come. They can come and, yeah, but
yeah, I think that would be the best.
I do too. I think that if there's negative feedback on it, that it not, you know, that it not be filtered, that they get to ask their questions, and hope, you know, hopefully maybe he'll come up with some solution. So I will be in touch with Jim and Lou individually to see about who's doing the 27th, and Mike will let me know if there's a delay at all. Number 11, discussion and vote on Bluff Community Center as a voting destination the week of November 7th, and misinformation on the Utah voting website. So thank you to Molly Schmidt, who brought this to my attention, or our attention. The Utah voting website, which is a utah.gov website, listed Bluff as a voting destination, which would be accurate, but then listed an address on Mulberry, and then listed no hours, no times, nothing. So I contacted Utah voting.gov, exchanged some emails with them, exchanged some emails with Lyman Duncan and San Juan County elections. Mr. Duncan hasn't done the schedule yet for when people are expected to staff, when the municipalities are expected to staff the voting boxes or the office, and he's working on that. It's interesting though, Blanding and Monticello's have hours and days on theirs. Ours does not, but he said that he didn't provide any of this information. It was all provided by someone other than his office, but he'll be providing that. And then once I get that information, so I corrected the address and gave our correct address so that people would know we were, well, where the address is. And then on the need to staff, we won't know anything until Mr. Duncan gets back with us. But then that will go on that Utah voting website by his Duncan's office sending that information up to the state, but we'll also monitor it. So thoughts on that? Questions?
It's very odd thing to happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure the address is an address I've really never been aware of that's been used. Maybe it was an old address that was used on Mulberry, I don't know. But the fact that other municipalities have their information up and ours isn't, we'll see what comes back from the election judge. And if there's nothing more on that, we can move to the local emergency planning committee meeting that I attended with San Juan County September 14th. This is the planning for the, kind of the big planning group for local emergency planning. And Tammy Gallegos does a great job of chairing it and organizing. There's various trainings that are put out that we can attend. The trainings are either tabletop all day or they're in person kind of all a day or a weekend. And they're held a couple times a year where they're the really big trainings. And if anyone's interested in going, you can let me know, or you can look at the LEPC part of the county's website. But it's, I was just looking for my note. They're going to do 2 trainings in 2023 that are pretty big weekend trainings. One of them, and I don't remember which it is, neither of them are particularly applicable to us. And the reason that I haven't paid a lot of attention to these long trainings is if we were at a point where we had a major catastrophe, we would not be doing it. The first thing we would be doing is contacting the county, who would contact the state, who would contact FEMA. So for the purposes of being on the ground, that big picture in terms of use of time is not as important as knowing what the pre-disaster mitigation plan is, or working with EMS and the fire department here as to making sure we have our personal plan. But if you want that information, you can look on the website, or you can let me know and I can just send you the contact information. And anybody's welcome to join the meeting. So if you're interested and you're listening to this, any community member can join. It's an open meeting. Any thoughts?
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm just looking here real quickly before we move to the next item. Okay, so the next thing that they've got scheduled for this is a full-scale exercise at Blue Mountain Hospital and San Juan Hospital, where there's been a forest fire and then flooding, and they're going to assume that the water has been compromised, and that compromised water has gone to the hospital. So if somebody wants to go in person November 8th, you can sign on for the LEPC training and get that hands-on training, which is good, excellent training. I'm not minimizing that. It's just trying to prioritize what a full day looks like to go up and do something that I would not be directly involved with, nor would you want me involved in a disaster of that nature. It would not be that person. So if anybody's interested, let me know and I'll get the information for you. All right, then the next one is for Linda, the report on the San Juan County Economic Development meeting.
Yesterday, we had our quarterly meeting, and this was our kind of first annual meeting for the year. We have a new chairman and vice chairman. But the big thing we did is we had a presentation from Colette Cox, who is the rural outreach manager of the Central of Rural Development, which is part of the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And she spoke about all the services that they can help us with. This is specific to rural counties, because rural counties and towns have really different challenges than cities do. They have really different economic landscapes than cities do. And she's really familiar with rural. So she said she was able to explain rural to urban people. So, but two things that are coming up from them, probably in October, they will roll out a grant. And this grant, I believe, well, it is $600,000. It is, I think, for our region, which our region is 5 counties: us, Grand, Beaver, Carbon, a couple others. And she said it was kind of a soft grant, which, means that it's not as restrictive as a federal government grant. So that's happening in October, and then in January, they're rolling out a low interest loan program for January. Both of these include unincorporated areas, which is great because that means people across could apply. We are also having a business expo for our county November 9th at USU. And so we're working on having speakers and presenters that are specific to the county, plus resource help, because there are a lot of businesses that don't really have the basics that they need, like a business plan, or, I know people who aren't keeping all their receipts for their business, that kind of thing, really basic things. So those are two of the things that are coming up. I mentioned our EMS fundraiser and the 4,000 plus that we got, and how the motorcycle group was really instrumental in that. And so they felt like that, all of us have seen motorcycle groups go through, and so that is an area that's not really being addressed. So we may look into how to communicate with groups that are from abroad that are coming here. So that was kind of the basic.
Those grants sound good.
Yeah, it's and you can get a grant as a town, you can get a grant as a business, a startup. So they've made it easy for a lot of people to apply.
Linda, I keep thinking about those 3 dark sky events in the summer here when our tourism's a little bit low. I think we could fill this town up with some properly, whether it would have to be a town committee to put that together and apply for the grant. I think it would, business-wise, it would be a real shot in the arm for summer in Bluff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? Any questions? In the financial report, Linda?
So Brent did the bank reconciliation. I sent out the financial report first part of September, and I sent you the bills that need to be paid, or approved anyway.
I saw those late additions. Are we approving those now? Because I'm going to make a motion to approve those.
Yeah, everything. The only bill that I didn't get was the water bill for the So that one's blank. If it comes in tomorrow, I will add it before I post everything, but if it doesn't, I'll just erase it.
Motion
What's
to
the,
approve those for payment, including the water bill if it comes in tomorrow, Mayor.
I will second that, but I have a question. What's the bill from Sunrise for?
It's for their services to date.
So this is the Tuttle thing with the water rights? He's starting to
Right.
bill. Okay, good.
Right.
All right, yeah.
Have you talked with him yet?
No, I looked back in the minutes and you had sent him the contract and on the 17th, I think, and it was all signed and everything and approved. So I guess he's on it if he's billing us.
Okay. You had said you wanted to talk with him, and I don't care if you do or not, but you had said that.
No,
so-
no, that was the only reason. I just wanted to know if he was going to go forward. So
Okay.
he's good. He's going.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And it's unanimous. Now, we have another that I need to address, so let's not get out of this meeting too quickly. Friends of Cedar Mesa has rented the community center for Celebrate. They start Friday at 11, and they'll be doing an audiovisual check 11 to 12, and then 12 they'll move some chairs and set up and do things. And then they have events Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday is their work schedule. But we've had a miscommunication that came to my attention this afternoon. So Chris Giangreco, who is the Assistant Executive Director, sent out an email in response to the audio-visual equipment rental. And so I'm just going to paraphrase what's going on. When we've rented the community center prior to COVID, our equipment was what it was. It's on the cart, it rolls out, it's got a projector. We've never changed that policy. That's always been the equipment that we've rented out. It's not spelled out specifically in a contract, like the AV equipment consists of an ancient projector and whatever. It's not spelled out. So now that we're renting the community center after having 2 years of a shutdown with the big events like FCM, between all of the people involved, when FCM rented the audio-visual equipment, they also hired Craig Benally to run the equipment. When I heard that today, it occurred to me that there may be some glitch here, that they think they're renting the YouTube and all of that, because otherwise they may or may not need Craig. And so it was clarified through Malia Collins that yes, Craig is being hired by FCM to run the audio visual, and that FCM believes that the audio visual equipment they're getting to use is the new equipment that we purchased with CARES money that we have in the past had a consensus that it's used only for the town and it's not the rentable equipment. Now, there's no, there's no blaming on this. We haven't had this come up before because we haven't been doing big groups that are signing a contract with AV equipment that's not spelled out, and people know now that we have this more sophisticated, better equipment. So I've asked Chris if I can talk with him tomorrow morning before he calls a team meeting to try to clarify this. Now, we can't vote, but we've never, I'm going to say this and I'm not sure. I don't believe we've ever taken an official vote on the use of that equipment. And I'm not advocating that the equipment that we have for our YouTube meetings should be out for general rental. I am, however, going to say that for the purposes of being on top of the Celebrate event, the fact that nobody caught this because there's too many people that don't have 4 years of institutional knowledge, it just got, it's just convoluted, and I think that we should look at just this event. Do we want to have this equipment used and then pass a formal policy as to what equipment we're talking about in the future, so this doesn't happen again? So, Lou, go ahead.
Just a clarifying part of that, the equipment that we got with the CARES Act money are those cameras that are hanging in the ceiling and the recording bit. The YouTube part was just an add-on that we figured out on our own to be able to put that on. You know, that was the purpose of the whole thing, is to get it more recorded and more transparency and stuff. But it's the equipment. So like if I've sort of felt like if that's what it's kind of for, if somebody's putting on a play or whatever, they can film it and record it. I think it might be good that it goes with our guy that knows how to use it.
And
And
then,
it seems like it's a good perk of the community center, but I think that our techie guy needs to be the one to run it.
and that's why I'm saying we cannot take a vote. All we can do is discuss this tonight and then put it on October 4th for a clarification policy. What is our general policy? For the purpose of getting a consensus today so I can talk with Chris. Lou, it sounds like you would be willing to have Craig run the equipment for Friends of Cedar Mesa event.
Yeah, I think you should be able to run it for whoever might be there, you know, that would want a recording like that. But it can't go out on our YouTube channel.
No,
But if they want it filmed onto some channel and he knows how to do that, I'd say if they're paying him. And I mean, 'cause to me, that's what those cameras are for, not just town meetings.
so other people want to weigh in, Brant?
I agree with Lou. We should use that this weekend, and moving forward, we know we're going to end up using that. I think we should have a fee for the rental, a separate fee, if you want to do the AV, and have a requirement that our guy does it.
Okay. There is already a fee that goes with the AV rental. So again, in the future, beyond this weekend, that's the big discussion.
That's what I advocate. Since it was not clarified this weekend, use it in the future, charge the fee, and assume people are going to use it unless they say no. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah, I agree with Brant. I think we need to reconsider the amount of the fee, though. That equipment has really set us back a few bucks. It's quite an improvement over the projector. Significant.
So are you saying I want to be clear that I'm getting a consensus and not a vote. So are you saying, Jim, that for this event, then you want to go back and look at the policy and let's formalize a policy, whatever that looks like?
Well, we're in a corner on this event. This event is going to occur on Friday, and we're hearing about it right now. I mean, we're in a corner. I think it would have been preferable for any business or anyone who wanted to use that apparatus, which is a significant apparatus, that they would have normally let us know well in advance, as they did with the chairs. But we're in a corner here, so what do we do?
But you say there's a fee, though, that they've paid?
There's a $25 AV fee that everybody approved 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Okay, so that to me tells me that it's rentable. Like, why would you pay for it if you can't use it?
Okay, I don't want to get deep in the weeds on this because we have two sets of equipment and we've never rented this set out. So for the purposes of moving past this piece, and Jim, in fairness to everyone involved, this is like we bring in a new temporary manager. We have a whole different staff at FCM. You know, AV equipment was mentioned. They're renting AV equipment. Which equipment? And so that's why we need to sort out the future. But to get us past this, Linda, I think you're the only one that hasn't weighed in.
I think that we may be in a corner, they may be in a corner. If they need to use it this time for it to work, they can do that. But I am opposite of everybody else so far. I think it should only be governmental. But we're not discussing that right now.
And I'm going to wait to weigh in on that because I also have an opinion, obviously, I always do. But the consensus is that they use that equipment. Craig has been hired to run it. We're all comfortable with Craig, right? So that's why we'll do a policy, because we need it.
And we'll always run into something new, and this is a new thing, so we discussed it and we'll figure it out, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's why it's no finger pointing. We haven't had this before. We've got it now. We just deal with it. But
And I'd say it's contingent on Craig running it, since he is aware of how it all
Yeah,
works.
just to be clear on our definitions, this is not audio. This is audiovisual equipment, but it is also broadcast equipment. It's basically a broadcast studio, which goes significantly beyond audiovisual. So I just think we ought to try to be clear. That's all.
so for those of you who have those nice technological words, that would be helpful for writing the two policies. One policy would be for the equipment that we've used right up until now and rented out. And then the other would be for the acquired studio that we got 2 years ago. So, but we're fine. If it's okay with everyone, I'll talk with Chris, FCM, smooth it over, and let's move past it, because
And just sort of an obvious point, I guess Craig is willing to have that responsibility and run it for them.
I don't think that's our business, Lou. That's between Craig.
That's between them. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which is part
That's
of my
right.
part of my concern. He's not our employee when he's running it, and where's the liability on it? I don't know, but I just want the weekend to go smoothly, as we all do. So we'll work on some policies and get them back. I'll notify FCM. Anybody else with an other? Tap this one.
Yeah, can I take my chainsaw over and cut down a branch over at the one that's hanging down in the playground that is obstructive to everything?
I don't know why not.
At the community center?
Yeah. No, over at the CCC.
Yeah, I would say it's probably a good thing to get down for safety reasons.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. If
Anybody
anybody
else?
objects, let me know.
Anyone else? It is 7:18. Any motion?
I'll
Motion
make
to
a adjourn, Mayor, if we're done.
We are. Is there a second? Anyone want a second? Okay, Luann seconding.
Yes, I second. Let's go home.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Anyone opposed? It's
Good job.
unanimous. I'm turning off the recorder. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Right.